I think that when he tries to communicate with someone, whether that's a journalist or a fan or a teammate or the opposition, even someone like Dave Warner, who he did not like, I think he tries to understand the human that he's speaking with, and that sounds obvious. We should all try and do that, but we don't all do that. I mean, I don't do that all the time. I mean, a senior journalist that I'm friends with would often say, the best and worst thing about Faf is that when you ask him a question in a press conference, he actually answers it. And it's the best thing because then you get some real quotes. But it's the worst thing because then you have to go transcribe about 45 minutes of Faf trying to do some calculations. I think the thing with Aiden then, so I've got a theory on Aiden Markram that he's going through that he's currently in his third chapter of his career. And the first chapter was like a Roman candle. It was brief and it was very bright. And that was that halcyon summer where he scored all those runs. And like I said, it was the prodigal son that was promised. But he still had this thing as a young man where if he nicked off or he hit one straight to cover, that wasn't Aiden Markram, the batter, failing to execute a skill. That was Aiden Markram, the person, being punished for some internal flaw. I don't think Aiden was able to differentiate himself as a person from him as a player.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Stumped. It's me as always, CS Chiwanza, and joining me today is one of the most prolific sports writers I know, Daniel Gallan. Daniel, welcome.
Thanks so much, mate. Really good to be here.
Thank you for coming along. A while ago, I wanted to do something on Quinton de Kock, and it was just after his retirement. I've never spoken to the man. I've never interacted with him. And so I had to troll the internet for information on him. Then I ran into your article. I stopped writing at that moment because I realized that one, I didn't have enough information on him, and two, I couldn't match the level you had put that article on. So how was that process, doing that piece on him?
Well, I mean, that's very kind of you to say. I would certainly still encourage you to write that piece. I'm sure you would do a great job and take the story further. Yeah, it's the one on Quinton. People, I get asked about it from time to time because he's such a unique character in the game in that I think a lot of modern cricketers now realize that cricket isn't everything. It's not the most important thing in their life. Family comes first, and raising their kids and looking after their future well-being. And I think modern cricketers have a bit of perspective. Like when Virat Kohli takes time off from captaining India to go and be there for the birth of his child, I think in the modern world we accept that is fine. But Quinton is unique in the sense that I don't know if he ever truly loved cricket. I think he enjoyed it in the way that's maybe you or I would enjoy playing paddle or golf. It was for Quinton, I think cricket was just it was a job, but it was a pastime. I don't think it was something that he ever truly loved. And I think that is why he comes across as aloof. He's also not the most, how do I say this delicately, not the most book smart person. I don't think he'd be flying on an aptitude or a conventional IQ test. But his reading of the game, I had no problems calling him a genius in my piece, because I think his ability to read length, to read angles, to understand when a bowling change should take place, I think he has a genius outlook on the game. But when you marry that with an indifference towards the game, it made the conversation quite a challenging one. We spoke for about 2 hours. We spoke about cricket for about half an hour. We spoke about the bush. We spoke about fishing. We spoke about the perceptions of him as a celebrity, how people often call him dumb, which is unfair, of course. But yeah, it was a. I'm grateful I managed to get that before he shuffled off the scene.
Do you think because Quinton was this, as you say, this genius from a young age, do you think that his sort of lack of love, as we see in other people towards cricket, is a byproduct of we have a genius here, and then the burden of cricket is sort of thrust upon him. So he does not necessarily choose it, but the people around him decide, you know what, he's so good at this, he has to go forward.
No, I don't think he was ever forced. I don't think he was ever compelled to play cricket by other people. I think he himself recognized that he was very good at it, and that he was never going to be an attorney or a a chartered accountant or anything like that. So his chance of a good life was through playing sports, and I think he enjoyed it enough that I never felt like it was a burden. His first love in sport was baseball. If he could have been a professional if in South Africa his earning potential was as high in cricket as it would have been in baseball, he would have been a baseball player. But no, I don't think he ever felt compelled to do it. I just think it's a personality thing. I mean, Abe de Villiers was a genius. Jacques Kallis was a genius. These guys loved cricket. They loved playing cricket. They would have continued to play cricket. Well, I mean, we could talk about AB, but you know what I mean. Sachin Tendulkar, they're Steve Smith. They're geniuses in every country who love the game. Quinton liked the game enough to pursue it, and he wanted to win. It wasn't like he wasn't competitive. Every time he went out to bat, he wanted to make 100, and he wanted to win things for his country, and he felt the pain of defeats, and he felt the joys of victories. I just think his lack of absolute love for the game meant that when the kneeling scandal happened in that T20 World Cup in 2021 or 22, I forget which date, it meant that he didn't have maybe enough of a cushion to absorb that blow and to absorb that criticism. So when that criticism came, when he had the captaincy foisted upon him, which I maintain was a terrible decision, he should never have been captain. I don't think he had that love of the game that could have shielded him and helped see him through that trouble. I think once that happened, he was out of the picture.
It's quite interesting that you mentioned that, because I sort of saw first the captaincy and then the kneeling scandal as two turning points in his life, where he sat down and he evaluated things and he said, maybe this is not worth it. Because I remember at one time I spoke with Dinelga, and he said captaining South Africa is one of the most difficult things because there's so much going on off the field that it sort of drains your energy. Do you feel as if you have a cushion? Do you feel that those two events to happen in such a short period of time just told him, you know what, you can still play cricket, still enjoy it on the leagues, but maybe on a national stage, on the international stage, this has to be it.
100%. And also, this was also during COVID. It was during the SJN hearings had either just concluded or were still taking place. And Dean is right. Captaining South Africa, it's hard to say it's more difficult than any other country. I think captaining India would be quite a tough gig. I think captaining Australia would be quite a tough gig. But yeah, when you're the captain of South Africa, you also have to be a politician in a way. You have to answer questions about race and the legacy of apartheid and transformation. And if one player is not selected and another player is selected and they don't share the same melanin counts, that's a concern. right? And if you're a straight talking white guy like Dean Elgar, or a guy who doesn't have the bandwidth for the broader socio-political narratives of cricket like Quinton, the captaincy can feel like a burden. That's why I think Faf did such a good job, because Faf is more, I don't want to say again, intelligence is a broad term, but I think Faf had a greater social intelligence than those other two guys. So I think he was able to navigate it. I think Graham Smith, for all his machismo and big chest energy, I think he had a greater social intelligence on how to navigate those sorts of things, although he didn't get it right all the time himself. Yeah, I think Quinton just also recognized that he could continue making good money, looking after his young family. He had just had a child around this time. He could spend more time at home in the same way that Henrik Klaassen has now decided he wants to be a franchise league mercenary. Playing for South Africa is a lot. It requires a lot of emotional energy, but also a lot of time away from home. And it's easy. When I was a younger man, I would criticize guys for doing that, but now I'm like you, I'm a father, and I recognize that. Look, if I could spend more time at home and make more money, yeah, maybe they would be okay.
Yeah, true. And it's pretty interesting that you raised Faf, because I wanted to find a way to segue into him, because he is, I do not think South Africa has had a captain like him. He's cut from a different cloth, and he sort of moved the country forward. People might not realize it now, but that's just how I see it.
Yeah, absolutely. I interviewed him a few years ago, and I wrote a piece with him for the same publication as that Quinton piece that you touched on. Faf outwardly is your stereotypical South African man. He is, I mean, he's shredded. He's probably got got the best body in cricket. He's good looking. He's straight talking. He went to a top Afrikaans school. He's quite macho. He gives off this alpha energy, but he also has a real delicacy to him. I think he's got a real softness to him. I think the way when he talks, I'm a huge fan of Faf. I think that when he tries to communicate with someone, whether that's a journalist or a fan or a teammate or the opposition, even someone like Dave Warner, who he did not like, I think he tries to understand the human that he's speaking with, and that sounds obvious. We should all try and do that, but we don't all do that. I mean, I don't do that all the time. I mean, a senior journalist that I'm friends with would often say, "Oh, the best and worst thing about Faf is that when you ask him a question in a press conference, he actually answers it, and it's the best thing because then you get some real quotes. But it's the worst thing because then you have to go transcribe about 45 minutes of Faf trying to do some calculations in his head, answering a question about why South Africa's fast bowlers are struggling in Port Elizabeth or whatever the case is." So. Yeah, I'm a big fan of Faf. I totally agree. I think he's changed the way South African captains are measured, and I don't want to discredit Quinton or Dean because I think they did things their own way, but I think that with Mark Belcher, Dean and Mark felt like a throwback to the Graham Smith years. And I think Faf had moved the captaincy and the role of leaders within Cricket South Africa away from that. So it felt like, to me, a step backwards. And I think what Shukri and Aiden and Temba in their roles as captains, I think they have taken on what Faf has done. The cohesiveness of the team, the freedom and the allowance for individuals to be themselves as people. Shukri going around the corner and having a smoke with KG and Marco Jansen. I don't know. I don't know if Dean would have allowed that. I don't know if Mark would have allowed that. But I think there's an acceptance now, and I think that thanks to Faf du Plessis, that cricketers can be vulnerable, they can be insecure, they can be themselves. Whereas I think with Mark and Dean and Graham Smith before them, insecurity was something that needed to be stamped out, and weakness was what was a challenge that needed to be overcome. But I give full credit for both being an alpha male and for being a bit of a soft boy, in a way, if I can use that term.
Where do you think, because you spoke with them numerous times and you sat with them to do the piece, but where do you think that softer side of them was cultivated, if I may say? Because, as you say, he went to Afis during a time when boys had to be boys and men had to be men. You had to be strong, you had to be all of it. And then he succeeded the Smith Boucher era. And so it was not as if there was a template for him to follow that put him along the line that he went down. So where do you think it was cultivated, this softer side that he has?
I think some people are just good leaders. I don't think that like people are born to be Alexander the Great or Julius Caesar, whatever, or Faf du Plessis. But I do think that leadership is both a skill and a talent. I think he has a natural talent for leadership, and I think he has a natural softness, despite that harder edge that you spoke about. But I think that would be the nature side of things. But I think the nurture side of things came from being A.B. de Villiers' best friend. And I think from watching his best mate and his partner in crime at school just have a meteoric rise. And, Faf and AB were tracking along similar lines, and then AB just did that while Faf continues to do that. So, I mean, while Faf is playing in the Lancashire leagues and toiling away in the Northern's B team, AB de Villiers is scoring hundreds against the West Indies for South Africa and opening the batting in test matches against England. And Faf is plugging away in relative anonymity. And I think that taught Faf two things. One, it taught him a humility. And it taught, three things maybe. A humility. It also taught him an acceptance that everyone takes their own path to the top. And so if he was talking to a young player who was struggling with form, or if he was talking with a senior guy who was trying to hold on to the last bit of cricket he had, I think Faf was able to recognize that they're going to do it in their own way. And I think this is why AB and other superstars, why Brian Lara didn't make a very good captain. I think why Shane Warne wouldn't have made a good captain. I know that might be a controversial thing to say, but why Kevin Peterson didn't make a good captain, why AB de Villiers didn't make a good captain, because sometimes when you are a genius, and it's like, guys, just do this. Why aren't you scoring 100 or 70 balls? Because I can do it. Why can't you do it? Whereas I think Faf had a recognition that cricket was damn hard, and just getting to the top requires immense skill and talent and dedication that no one's fluking their way to the top. Even a guy as aloof as Quinton de Kock got there through hard work. I mean, Quinton has obviously worked hard to get where he is. So I think Faf's journey and growing in the shade of his good mate AB de Villiers, I think that cultivated him, that inculcated a sense of humility and recognition and an understanding that, everyone's going to kind of be their own person and take their own journey.
And a part of me, I was discussing this the other day, that, Faf is what, 40, 41, and he's still there. He's still playing the leagues, and it just looks as if he still has that enjoyment. And do you think that this enjoyment is coupled with a sort of gratitude that he's able to do this for so long, something he clearly loves a lot? Do you think that is what keeps driving him? That is like, look, I'm grateful that I'm able to do it, so I'm going to keep doing it until I can't.
Yeah, maybe there's a sense of him not wanting to let go of what he's worked so hard to get. Um, I mean, he's also just super fit and make hay while the sun shines, right? I mean, like whatever he does, and he's in the next chapter of his life when he does eventually retire, he's not going to earn as much money as he's earning now. He's probably not going to. I mean, he's certainly not going to have as much fun. Like you talk to commentators and coaches, every single one, like even guys who are doing like really fun jobs and still traveling the world and being involved in cricket. Like you talk to Mike Atherton, he'll say that the best job he ever had was playing cricket. He might be the most respected cricket writer in the world, and he might do all these commentary stints on Sky, etc. But Mike Atherton's heyday was playing cricket as a professional cricketer. So I think maybe Faf, like Imran Tahir, who keeps going at the age of 75 or whatever he is, I think these older guys are just like, look, I'll just keep going until my body won't allow me to do it. I mean, that's why you have these legends leagues now. That's why you have old guys so desperate to play in them. That's why AB de Villiers is still takes it so seriously, because I think I still play cricket. I've just had a really good summer. We've done a lot of traveling, but some of the best days I've had this summer was playing at a very low level Sunday cricket and like not doing that well. So if I was as good and as fit as Faf du Plessis, I would be playing until I was 60.
Well, the craziest thing is today's world sort of frowns upon that, but that was always the thing, wasn't it? Greats played until they couldn't walk anymore. Guys have been playing forever.
Yeah, because it's so much fun, and if you're Faf now, he just looks like he's having a good time. Like every time you see him on TV, and he's still diving around, he's still batting really well, and yeah, he's not gonna be the superstar. But I mean, and also he loves his family. Like he is a family man, and I mean he's earning great money. I mean the cricket has made him a wealthy person, and like he has already set up his family for the rest of his kids probably never have to work a day in their lives. I mean, knowing Faf, they will, and there'll be a discipline there. Like he's not going to spoil his children, I wouldn't imagine. But yeah, cricket has given him a lot, and I think your observation about the hard road. He once told me that he took the dirt road where AB de Villiers took the highway, and I think taking that dirt road. Same as Imran Tahir. Why does Imran Tahir keep playing? I think because Imran Tahir knows that like it took him like a long time to get to where he wants to. He has to leave countries to play international cricket, and I think they'll just keep going until they can't go anymore.
The third captain whom you wrote about is Aiden Markram. I think when I look at him, I empathize a lot with him because, rightly or wrongly, I sort of feel as if Aiden is this person whom South Africa has been waiting to deliver a trophy since 2015. He delivered the Under-19 World Cup. They decided, you're going to give us the big one. Yeah. What was your experience when you interviewed him?
Well, I interviewed him just after his breakthrough summer. So we actually made our test debut together. The first test that I covered as a journalist. I came to journalism a little later, sports journalism a little later than the traditional route. So it was 2017, and my first test was against Bangladesh in Potchefstroom, and that was also Aiden's first test when he made 97 or something like that. He either got run out or he ran out Dean Elgar. But yeah, he made 97, and then he made hundreds he made 100 in the next test, and then he made 100 against Zimbabwe, and then he got a very well played 94 in Centurion on a difficult pitch against India, and then he got the 200s in the Australia series, and he became the fastest South African to 1,000 runs. I think he got there in his 10th game, and he was averaging 55. And then when Faf injured himself for the white ball series against India, Aiden captained. And though that was a terrible experience for him, he admits now that he said something to me the other day that the deep end was too deep for him, but it was still a great summer. And and like you say, yeah, he was the prodigal son that was promised. So obviously he was in good spirits then. He was very self-reflective. But I think the thing with Aiden then, so I've got a theory on Aiden Markram, that he's going through that he's currently in his third chapter of his career. And the first chapter was like a Roman candle. It was brief and it was very bright. And that was that halcyon summer where he scored all those runs. And like I said, it was the prodigal son that was promised. But he still had this thing as a young man where if he nicked off or he hit one straight to cover, that wasn't Aiden Markram, the batter, failing to execute a skill. That was Aiden Markram, the person, being punished for some internal flaw. I don't think Aiden was able to differentiate himself as a person from him as a player. Failure on the pitch was indicative in his mind of some sort of internal shortcoming that he had. So he would admonish himself. He would, you know, he would score 99, and he would score 199, and he would walk off the field, and he would be angry about that one bad shot he played, right? And AB retired. So remember, when Aiden made all those runs, AB de Villiers was in the team. Hashim Amla retires. The bowlers, the bowling unit goes through a change where Kagiso Rabada is sort of the one mainstay, but Morne Morkel is gone. Vin Philander is on his way out. Dale Steyn is on his way out. They have a terrible 2019 World Cup. COVID comes. Faf's form is dipping. And South African cricket's going through a really bad spot. And then in India, when the team just is getting bamboozled by world-class spinners on Bunsen burners, Aiden makes a pair in Pune, punches the dressing room wall and breaks his wrist, and then misses about 6 months. He missed that home series against England just before COVID. So this is a tough time for him, and I think that tough period is his second chapter. This third chapter that he's in now is one of freedom. So he's recently got married, and he said something after scoring that 100 at Lords to win the World Test Championship, one of the greatest knocks by a South African of all time. I mean, arguably one of the greatest knocks by anyone of all time, but certainly I would put that in my top 5 innings by a South African. It was remarkable. I was at Lords. It was just so good, just pure class. The player that we all knew he could be, the kind of innings that we all know he's capable of. And he said something after the game where he said he's no longer chasing stats. He just wants to win games of cricket for his country. And that sounds like a cliche throwaway line. But when I spoke to him 8 years ago, that was not his attitude. He was very clear 8 years ago that he wanted to be the best player. He wanted to average 55 for South Africa. He wanted to score more hundreds than anyone else. He wanted to be the #1 batter in the world. The stats mattered to him. The obsession with cricket and the numbers mattered to him. I truly believe they don't matter to him anymore. Yes, obviously he wants to score runs and he wants to have as high average as possible, because that means if he's doing well, the team's doing well. But I think he's inhabited a space that is free from the burden of being the messiah, from being the prodigy, from being the young superstar. He's in his 30s now. He's married, and this comes with maturity. But I spoke to him the other day just for the second ODI against England at Lords. So when was that? We're speaking now on Monday. I spoke to him on last Wednesday, I think it was. He just seemed a lot more relaxed. He seemed to be inhabiting the space that, like, I felt happy. Like, I wanted to give him a hug. I felt happy for him. He looked at peace, and he had this sense of ease within himself that was absent from 8 years ago when I first spoke to him.
And I do not think that a lot of people who did not read your piece on him realize that while his rise looked meteoric. Like he goes from Northerns to Titans to national team. I think he was 21 or something like that. I do not think that people realize that his path wasn't as smooth. I mean, he was not in the original 2015 under-19 squad.
Yeah, it was Ray Jennings who plucked him out. I mean, look, I don't want to like name the names of who didn't select him, but it was clearly a howler. He should have been there. I mean, Ray Jennings saw him bat and was like, I don't care how many runs this kid's made for his school or for his province. Like he's coming straight into the team. And it was the same with Shukri Conrad. Like I spoke to Shukri on Tuesday or Wednesday, whatever it was, and I said, when Shukri got the gig to be the national coach, he said that he made two decisions within the first 2 seconds of being confirmed as a coach. One was Temba Bavuma was going to be his captain, and two, Aiden Markram was going to open the batting, no questions asked. And I asked Shukri, it's like, well, the Temba one I get, you wanted to move away from Dean, you want to kind of entrust Temba with the leadership, and I think that I could kind of understand that. But I said, Aiden wasn't exactly tearing up trees with his form. Why were you so adamant that Aiden was going to open the batting? And Shukri just looked at me and said, because he's so good. And he's just so good. You watch Aiden Markram get on the front foot and drive one through the covers, or go on the back foot and pull it through mid-wicket. And it's like, he looks like the best batter you've ever seen in your life. He just does. Some guys just look class, and some guys just look a class above. And I think I don't want to sound like I'm like this big Aiden Markram rah. I mean, I think Aiden Markram had the potential to go down as one of South Africa's top 5 batters of all time. He probably won't now because of those numbers, and cricket is a slave to numbers. It's a game of numbers, if nothing else. So I don't think he will ever. I don't think he will reach the bracket of Cullis, AB, Amla, and Smith, who are clearly the top 4 of the modern era. I think Aiden is just below that. But there's a case to be made that Aiden looks better than all of them when in full flow. Maybe with a case to be made. I'm not going to stake my reputation on that claim, but you know what I mean. Like, he just looks so good when he's on form. And yeah, Ray Jennings spotted that, and that's why he drafted him into the under 19 side in 2015. That's why Shukri Conrad brought him straight back into the team, and that's why people like me who watch him bat and have seen many people bat before, just like, I don't care what number this guy ends with next to his name. He is a world-class talent, no questions.
The other thing, is it not possible? This is a theory that I've always entertained. I used to throw it around on Twitter when I was still active. Is it not possible that Aiden does not have the amazing average because his career was in this period where a lot of things were happening in South African cricket off the field? I believe it affects people. And then also, it does not help that we've been in a bowling era for the longest time. Teams are curating pitches to suit their bowlers. It's difficult. Then the wobble ball comes in, and it's just so much. It's easy when you're England and you're creating pitches for baseball, but it's not the same for everyone else.
Yeah, and he's an opener. Opening the batting in South Africa has got to be among the hardest jobs in all of cricket, anywhere in the world. The stats show that even before the wobble seam became the default wicket taker, even when opening bowlers were trying to swing and seam it rather than wobble it, even when the ball's gun barrel straight in Joburg, opening the batting in South Africa is a tough gig. You got to, some of the world's greatest have come to South Africa and been made to look foolish. I mean, Werner Philander is obviously a superstar player, but the fact that his stats, I don't want to say his stats were padded because that sounds like I'm being disrespectful to him, but you know what I mean? Like Ferdinand Philander had the benefit of opening the bowling in South Africa. If Pat Cummins was opening the bowling in South Africa as opposed to Australia, well, actually, just an aside, I mean, the Australian wickets are starting to resemble South African wickets now, but that's an aside. Yeah. So, and also being immense in a poor team, Brian Lara did that. Jacques Cullis did that. Joe Root, to an extent, has done that. But these are three of the best players of all time, right? Who bat in the middle order. When you're an opening batter and you're not quite in that upper echelon, asking Aiden Markram to average 50 in South Africa, opening the batting in a struggling team, in a team that is beset by accusations of racism in the SJN, coached by a guy who is a taskmaster, captained by a guy who publicly puts pressure on you. Dean Elgar would often say in public at press conferences, we need Aiden Markram to start making runs. I've put pressure on him. I've had tough conversations with him. I think Dean's heart was in the right place. Dean loves Aiden Markram, really cares for him, sees him as a younger brother. So I don't blame Dean. I just think Dean doesn't have a softer touch. And I've spoken to Dean many times. We keep in contact. I've said it to his face that I think he could have been softer on Aiden, and he told me to F off basically. So yeah, you're right. It's in another time, in another place, in a different team, Aiden Markram would have retired in the future with an average of 55 or in the 50s. Now it's going to probably be low 40s. But again, Andy Zaltzman, the BBC statistician, says that numbers tell the truth, but they also lie, and that they obviously don't tell the full picture. And I hope that future generations, when they look at the pantheon of great South African cricketers, don't judge Aiden purely. When people make a composite team of South Africa post-apartheid, it's always Graham Smith opening the batting with Gary Kirsten, and some people will have Dean Elgar. I already have Aiden Markram opening the batting with Graham Smith in my composite dream team post-apartheid. I think he is. I just think he's so good. I'm such a fan, as you can tell.
And look, I do not fault you actually, because as you stated earlier, his knock at Lords was incredible, and he tends to do that. I did a piece when I was looking at his stats and everything. It doesn't happen often, but Aiden does tend to score runs when sometimes no one else is. And his third or fourth innings conversion is quite incredible.
Well, I mean, that obviously that knock at Lords was sublime, and like I said earlier, one of the great innings of all time. But it also mustn't be forgotten that he played an innings in that game when South Africa qualified for the World Test Championship final, when they beat Pakistan after a huge wobble, and Mohammad Abbas bowled one of the greatest bowling performances I've ever seen. We keep talking about greatest of all time, but I mean that Mohammad Abbas spell, what was it, 6 for nothing? He just ripped through South Africa. Aiden made 80 something in that game. That without that knock, South Africa don't beat Pakistan in Cape Town, and then possibly then they have to win the final test, and that Cape Town pitch was flat as anything. In another time, maybe Pakistan go on and draw that game, or then South Africa, then the ground staff are compelled to make a spicy wicket in South Africa, lose it again. So all these all these little alterations in history, Aiden's knock of resilience in pressure in a fourth innings, just like at Lords, like that wins the game. He gets man of the match in the game that saw South Africa qualify for the World Test Championship and the game where they won the World Test Championship. That's not a coincidence. That is a sign of a guy who steps up when his country needs him. And I don't think Aiden Markram was doing this 4 or 5 years ago, because he wasn't in that mental state, because he was more obsessed about what he was doing, the number next to his name. He has pulled his team out of the fire twice, because he has had the psychological shift in him that says, I am going to be the guy who does it. And I don't care what I land up with, as long as what I land up with is good enough to help the team win. And you'll have mental skills coaches. I'm sure you've spoken to many in the articles that you've written, who will say that, like, what happens between the ears is often far more important than what you do with your feet or your hands. And what Aiden has done between the ears, I think he deserves a lot of credit for that.
You touched on Shukri. I do not think it's possible to discuss Aiden and not go into Shukri. Shukri has done things with his side that are incredible, really. And each time I think of him, I think of, there's this youngster who plays at Eastern, Devon Murray. And when I was doing a piece on him, I spoke with his father, and his father was like, I think Devon was fortunate to have Shukri as his under-19 coach, because Shukri handles all these youngsters as if they are his sons. And I sort of get the same feeling that he's carried that to the Proteas. He just makes everyone feel at home.
Yeah, Shukri was telling me that his daughter asks about how's my black cousin and how's my white cousin, in reference to Temba and Aiden, because Shukri apparently at home talks about them like they are his kids, or at least his nephews. Shukri inherited a team that was in disarray. Let's be frank. The team was not playing well. They got spanked by Australia in Australia. They didn't lay a glove on the Aussies. They should have lost their series 3-0. I think Weather saved them and prevented it from being 3-0 in Australia, in a country where South Africa had won the previous 3 tours, right? So, to go there and if it was a boxing game, we would have thrown the towel in the second rounds. Like that's how comprehensive the wins were. We blew a series lead in England by a daft decision to play Simon Harmer, who I'm a fan of, but I think his selection at Manchester was clearly a poor one, and it cost South Africa the series. The bowlers couldn't stay fit. There were no runs in the batters. I mean, for 3 years, South Africa scored, what was it, like something like 400s in 3 years, something terrible like that. There was no confidence. Sponsors were leaving. I like Mark Boucher I know that a lot of people don't like him, but my interaction with him have always been good. I think he was a good coach. I think he was an excellent coach for the Titans, and a lot of the players that are doing well now on the Proteas side cut their teeth in a very competitive elite Titans team. I think Aiden Markram among them. But it was right that he was sacked. I think after the SJN, Mark's time as Proteas coach became untenable. And look, Shukri came in with little reputation in terms of playing career. I mean, Mark Boucher, Gary Kirsten, even Otis Gibson. Shukri didn't have that playing pedigree, but what he did have, and I keep talking about, I alluded to it with Faf, he had a softness to him, and I see this team now. And again, I'm obviously not inside the team. I can't speak with any first-hand experience. I can only go on from speaking to the guys and observing from the proximity that I get as a journalist. But I see a team that genuinely likes each other. that gets on well, that care for each other. And that's not to say that Smith or Faf or Dean or AB or Hashim or Pollock or any of the other guys weren't able to cultivate that togetherness. But I see KG, KG Rabada, I see him enjoy, like it's like he's playing with his mates, and I see, Bellingham and Verena, who are actually really close friends, like being the class clowns within the group. I see Stubbs and Aiden, be buddies together. I see Janssen and Mulder and Bosch mucking about. I see Temba kind of moving between that space. Lungi's cracking jokes. It just seems like a vibe, to use a very simple term. I think Shukri has created a sense where it's like, guys, we're good players. Let's enjoy this. Let's just enjoy each other's company. Let's enjoy playing for South Africa. Yeah, let's take it seriously, but like, you need a smoke break during the most important innings of your life, Marco and KG. Come, I'll get the cigarette. I'll light your smoke for you. You need time off. You need to do this. You need to do that. There's a calm. I think Shukri brings a serenity. Yeah, he's tough, and he's straight talking. I mean, the night before they almost choked against Pakistan in that run chase. Where was that run chase? Was it Centurion? Wherever it was.
So, yeah.
Yeah, Centurion. The night before the final day, Shukri sort of sprayed them and said, "Do you want to be the guys who effing choke for your country?" And that did not go well. So it's not like Shukri is perfect. I know he can rub some people up the wrong way, but within that group, I think he's created something special. And I think the results you're seeing, yeah, I know they just lost by the biggest margin in one-day cricket, in ODI history yesterday, but they won a series, an ODI series in Australia. They've just won an ODI series in England. They're the world test champions. Like, there's depth in the batting, there's depth in the bowling. Sponsors are back on board. Like this energy around South African cricket is the best it's been since 2018. Since that sandpaper, I haven't felt as good as a cricket South African fan. I'm a journalist, but a fan as well. Since South Africa beat Australia in that Sandpaper Gate series, and that was in 2018. So whatever's happening is working, and you got to give Shukri credit for
that. The loss that you just mentioned, it's a crazy one, because it just looks as if the guys went from losing the first matches of a series to losing the last one after they've won everything else. They did the same in Australia. And is it, when you look at it, is it a mindset shift that, you know what, we don't need to be, yes, we are still switched on because it's international cricket, but we also have to think about the next matches, the next steps. There's another series coming. Is it one foot in the next series when they go into the dead rubber?
Jeez, I don't know. I mean, they've got two hidings, haven't they? They've been absolutely pasted. I mean, Shukri said it's a little embarrassing. I think it should. I think it could be tougher than that. I mean, it's very embarrassing to have, someone on Twitter posted that few people remember winning the series 2-1 in a relatively meaningless series in September in England, but losing by the biggest margin in ODI history, that'll be there forever. I would be surprised if any team loses by more. Well, I mean, the record only stood for 2 years because when India beat Sri Lanka, but I don't know. I mean, surely you've still got pride. Surely, I mean, you're still playing for your country. You're still going out there and wanting to do well. I don't want to sound like Harry Brook when I say it's just one of those games and like these things happen, but maybe there's some of that. Maybe these things do happen sometimes in cricket. I mean, goodness, they were poor. I hope that the feeling of getting pasted like that lives with them. I think it also must be said that South Africa isn't playing their best team. That's probably not South Africa's best bowling attack. I know Temba didn't bat. I don't think Temba should be in the white ball sides. I don't think he offers enough, but maybe that's a story for when we got some more time to talk about Temba. So I think the ODI team needs a tweak, but geez, bro, I mean, who knows why they lost by so much in those two games? I mean, it's pretty shocking.
I like Temba. I think a lot of people just don't really get Temba as a cricketer. And yeah, I mean, I'm not sure how I feel about him in the ODI squad, but I want him in the Test squad. I don't think he's a T20 player.
No, I think Temba's our most he's not our best batter in Tests. I think Aiden is our best batter, but because of where Temba bats, I think Temba is the most important batter in the team. He unquestionably needs to captain the side. I think if you were making a World's 11 of the last year, I think Temba is the World 11 captain, based on runs and based on the fact that his team are champions. I mean, like of course he's unquestionably South Africa's most valuable batter in the Test team. I just don't think he's a white ball player. I think he's not as fit as he used to be. He's a bit of a liability in the field now. He's sort of being hidden at short mid wicket, where he used to be a bit of a gun fielder when he could scamper across the ground. But yeah, I don't think there's any shame in saying that. But you go online and you say and you praise Temba Bavuma or you criticize Temba Bavuma, and you are going to get sprayed for either being a Bavuma apologist or a, if you're a white guy, a racist, or someone who I bet you just want Peter Stratham to come back in the side. And it's like, you know what, we can have mature conversation about Temba Bavuma. Temba's a big boy. Temba has achieved a hell of a lot in his career. Temba doesn't need the noise and the vitriol and the blowing smoke up his ass. Like, we can just talk about him as a cricketer. He's a fantastic Test player. He accumulates runs in the middle order. He is South Africa's number 4 finishing club. I don't think he belongs in the white ball side. In my opinion, that's just a finishing club. But that we're just having cricket conversations now.
Temba and Aiden are two sides of the same coin, aren't they? You cannot have a good conversation around Aiden because there is either an army of people who claim he has pretty boy privilege, and then you try to talk about Temba. There is another army of people who do not believe he's good enough. It's a weird thing.
That's interesting. Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I guess because they've come up together, because and they both represent. They both represent something, but that's the thing about South African cricket. Everyone represents something. Keshav represents something. KG represents something, and that's why when KG was nabbed for using drugs, that shattered what he had represented: black excellence, post-apartheid, the son of wealthy middle class black people, the perfect head boy. And then when these things shatter, we have to reevaluate. Aiden was the head boy, the good-looking Christian conservative values, but then when he punches the wall and breaks his wrist and loses his cool, then that shatters something. So I think, and we do this with all our athletes. When Sia is accused of, I don't want to say now because nothing's been proven, but when he's accused of doing what he's accused of doing, if anyone listening to the podcast wants to go do their own research, they can do that. That shatters a perception. When Ebenezer is accused of racially aggravated assault, that shatters something. When Rassie says something sexist, that shatters something. So South African, and we're not the only ones, but South Africans do make symbols out of our athletes, and we can go, maybe this is a conversation for another day because I've got to go pick my son up from his first day at reception. But it's a continuation of what Mandela did, where Mandela turned athletes into symbols because it was part of the nation building a young country and a young democracy, and we've continued to do that. So when our preconceived notions are challenged, it makes us feel uncomfortable. You know, we can then go searching for meaning, or we can double down despite the evidence in front of us. But when those notions are confirmed, our views become entrenched, right? And then it's a whole lot of, I told you, yeah, where the, you know, like when Temba makes those runs, we're the racists now. When Aiden makes the runs, who wants to tell us transformation? And it's like, guys, you're both just shouting. You're just shouting at each other. Like sometimes I feel like South Africans like can't just like chill around a sport. Like the Springboks lost this weekend, and oh my goodness, the vitriol online. I'm like you. I now only post my my articles on Twitter, but I've stopped having fights with people. But I guess it shows that we care, and I don't want to. I mean, the worst thing that could happen is that, and that was happening for a while. People weren't talking about cricket, so the fact that people are getting angry about the sport is in some weird way a sign of the health of the game.
I suppose so. To wrap up, goodness, I didn't think I would have this little time, but why did you get into sports writing late? Like, I also got into sports writing late, but what's your story?
My story is, and I'll try and make this quick, but I'd love to come back on the pods and we can, you know, because I want to hear your story too. Maybe we can talk about how two Balis got into the thing late. But yeah, I was a music journalist before I was a sports writer, and I was working in Joburg. I just started contributing some film pieces for Rolling Stone magazine before they folded, and then I started working for a website in Joburg that did a lot of music and restaurants and film reviews, and I was enjoying it, but it didn't quite take me where I wanted to go. So I decided to make a transition to. I started working for an events agency that put on these sports knowledge sharing events, and I would write the copy for them. But it was around 2017, I realized that I was starting to feel like my head bumping up against the glass ceiling. So I decided to go freelance. And from there, I started contributing for Supersport, for Neil Manthorpe's company MWP, and doing bits for the Man and Guardian. And from there, it's just taken off, and I absolutely love it. So if any young listener is hearing this and wondering how to get started, just follow Chris's lead and just launch. I mean, Stumped is one of the best blogs. You know, I refer to it all the time. Whenever I'm about to interview someone, I'm like, I bet there's a big deep dive long read that includes interviews with his next door neighbor and the high school coach and his primary school crush and the person who worked at the tuck shop, and you know, I know that all bases will be covered. So that's why when you like the Quinton piece, like definitely write it. I would love to hear about his baseball years and all the rest. But yeah, it's a cool gig. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of hard work, as you know. It could pay better, but it's really rewarding. And when you write something that resonates with people, that really is the best part, I would say.
Oh, brilliant, Dan. Thank you very much. Yeah, let's do this again. But thank you for being on today's episode.
Oh, what a pleasure! Thank you so much.